Hello everyone. Let's take a look at an example where the equation of the circle is given to us in a different form. And I just want to work with this a little bit. So sometimes the equation of a circle can be given to us in what we call general form. So everything is all multiplied out. So there's no parentheses, and then we have our x and y squared terms, a couple linear terms, and a constant. And this is called general form. However, with general form, just looking at this equation, it doesn't give me a whole lot of information. Because of the way that these coefficients are, I do know that this is going to be a circle, but I don't know where the center is. I don't know what the radius is. So sometimes it's helpful to rearrange this into standard form, and then we can look at it, and it's easy to identify those two things. So just as a reminder, this is standard form. So we have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to the radius squared. So if we look at this and we compare that to what I'm given, this one is all multiplied out, and this one looks like it's kind of in factored form. Okay, we have a binomial squared and a binomial squared. So what we need to do is I need to take our original equation and I need to complete the square for the x's and the y's. So let's talk about how to do that. So let me rewrite our original equation. And the first thing is, if I'm going to try and factor this, I need to group up my x terms and I need to group up my y terms. So we'll do x squared minus 8x, and I'm actually going to leave a little space here because we're going to use that in a second, plus y squared plus 4y. And then this 16, don't necessarily need that right now, this constant. Looking at this, I probably could use it. However, just in general, whenever we're doing this, this constant doesn't really help us out. So I'm just going to move that over to the other side. So I'm going to just add 16 like this. So then this is equal to 16. Okay. Now, to complete this square, what that means is I need to add on one more term to these two so that I end up with a perfect square trinomial. Okay, so just to give you an example, we'll go backwards here. Let me get a piece of paper. So if I think about a binomial squared, something like x plus 3 squared. When I multiply this all out, this is the same as x plus 3 times x plus 3. So we get x squared. In the middle, you have a 3x and another 3x. That's plus 6x. And then 3 times 3 is 9. So that's kind of going the regular way. We want to go backwards now. So in our equation of a circle, we know these two things. We need to figure out the constant that we need to add on so that we can factor it out like this. If you look at this, you should notice a pattern. If I take 6 and I cut it in half, it gives me 3 and 3. And then 3 squared gives me 9. All of these have that same pattern. So if we follow that, negative 8, if I cut that in half, I get negative 4. And then if I square negative 4, that means I need to add on 16. So now just these three things can be factored. If I try and factor this, two numbers that multiply to 16 but add to negative 8, it's negative 4 and negative 4, which we already knew because that's half of the negative 8 there. So because we can factor like that, we end up with a binomial squared. Now for these two, same thing. We'll take the middle term, 4, we'll cut that in half. It's 2, and then 2 squared, so we're going to add on 4. So now these three terms can be factored into a binomial squared. Okay, two numbers that multiply to 4 and add to 4 is 2 and 2. Okay, so they're the same, so we're going to end up with y plus 2 squared. Okay, I did just add these on. However, to maintain the equality of our equation, if I added them on the left-hand side, I also need to add these on to the right-hand side. Okay, so add 16 onto both sides, add 4 onto both sides. Okay, so now we can factor. So these three we can factor into what we already talked about, x minus 4 squared. And then these three we can factor into y plus 2 squared. And then on the right-hand side, 16 plus 16 plus 4 is 36. And now we're in standard form. So here's standard form. And from this, we can easily tell what the center is and what the radius is. So the center is h and k. Remember, these negative signs are built in. So the center, we have h is 4. And then since this one's plus, we actually need the opposite of that. So this is the y value of the center is negative 2. And then the radius, so here r squared is 36. The square root of both sides means that the radius is 6. So just using a little bit of algebra, a little bit completing the square, we can go from general form to standard form, and then from there it's easy to see what the center is and what the radius is.